You are standing in the middle of the chaos that modern life has become. Endless notifications, ecological crises, social pressure. There have never been so many events to keep up with, and ultimately, so many reasons to feel anxious. But amidst all this, you ask yourself a question: how can I find a little peace in all this mess? And that's where an ancient wisdom resurfaces, a philosophy forged in the dusty streets of ancient Athens, but which still resonates with our modern lives. We are beings made for the search, not for certainty. It is not others who condemn me, nor the world that crush me, but that intimate tyrant within, poisoning my own mind, the endless quest for the unattainable. Here, we move forward. We question what torments us, not to dominate it, but to learn how to love it. You are entering the odyssey of concepts. Today, we will talk about Stoicism. Given how popular this philosophy has become today, I had to cover it. But since there are already many videos on the subject, I will try to add my personal touch by answering one important question. Stoicism was born in a world very different from ours. Does it still have a place in today's society? Is it still applicable, or has it become outdated? To understand, let's go back to the beginning. What you see here is a portico, but not just any portico. It was under this stoa in Greek that Stoicism was born, around 300 BC, under the influence of Zeno of Citium. After surviving a shipwreck and losing most of his belongings, Zeno found refuge in philosophy. Fascinated by schools of thought like the Cynics and the Platonists, he developed his own vision and began teaching under this famous portico. Zeno laid the foundations of a philosophy that values virtue as the highest good and promotes living in harmony with nature. But it was in Rome, centuries later, that Stoicism reached its peak, becoming a practical philosophy adopted by emblematic figures you might know if you've been following the channel. Epictetus, a former slave and later a teacher. Seneca, advisor to Nero, and finally Marcus Aurelius, the Roman emperor. These three Roman thinkers, despite coming from very different backgrounds, shared a common conviction: to make Stoicism a way of life. Epictetus taught self-mastery and acceptance of external events. Seneca encouraged temperance and deep reflection. As for Marcus Aurelius, in his Meditations, he presents a constant struggle to stay virtuous despite the overwhelming responsibilities of being emperor. Stoicism is based on simple but extremely powerful principles: live according to nature, distinguish between what depends on us and what doesn't, and use reason to achieve serenity. But one principle stands out in particular: the distinction between what is within our control and what is not. Epictetus defined it like this: what troubles men is not events themselves, but their judgment about those events. Let's take a simple example. You plan a picnic, and it starts raining. You can't control the weather. What you can control, however, is your reaction. You could lament your bad luck, or you could seize the opportunity to have a picnic indoors, or simply change plans and improvise. That choice, that ability to focus your energy on what truly matters, that is the heart of Stoicism. Today, we are bombarded with information. Economic crises, environmental disasters, and social media constantly confronting us with comparisons. And this is exactly where Stoicism can help us find a way out. When you wake up in the morning, Marcus Aurelius reminds us, tell yourself that today you will meet ungrateful, jealous, deceitful people. But remember that their actions are not your responsibility, only their own perceptions. In short, don't let yourself be overwhelmed by emotions. And that's a powerful remedy against anxiety. Stoicism allows us to ask ourselves, is this really worth worrying about? And very often, the answer is no. It is also an antidote to overconsumption. Our world glorifies the accumulation of goods and the endless pursuit of status. Stoicism offers a different approach, summarized by Seneca. Happiness does not lie in material wealth, but in living according to reason and moderation. The poor person is not the one who has little, but the one who always wants more. Thus, Stoicism offers a kind of chosen simplicity, a voluntary sobriety, that isn't about deprivation, but about freeing ourselves from unnecessary desires. The constant chase for the latest iPhone, or the need for validation on social media, are goals often dictated by external pressures and can easily lead us away from what truly matters. The Stoic, instead, seeks to live in harmony with their values, to desire less in order to live better. But it's important to be clear, this philosophy can still pose problems in some contexts. Stoicism is often criticized for its focus on individual autonomy, especially in a world where problems are collective, like climate change or social inequality. Focusing only on mastering oneself can sometimes seem insufficient. For example, reducing your personal carbon footprint is important, but it doesn't solve systemic problems, which require collective action. By focusing only on individual responsibility, Stoics could risk ignoring the importance of collective efforts. However, thinkers like Hannah Arendt, in The Human Condition, remind us that only through collective action can we truly face the challenges of our time. There is also a common misunderstanding that accepting what is beyond our control means doing nothing in the face of injustice. For example, facing blatant inequality, a poorly informed Stoic might think, "It's not my fault, so I'll just accept it." But that's not the true spirit of Stoicism. Stoics never preached passivity. On the contrary, they encouraged action, but focused action. If we cannot, by ourselves, abolish systemic injustice, we can still act at our own scale, in our community, through our daily choices, to start broader change. There is also a common misunderstanding about Stoicism, that it pushes us to become insensitive, to hide our emotions, especially during difficult times, like the loss of a loved one. But that's not at all what Stoicism taught. In reality, the Stoics never said we should become heartless. They recognized that emotions are part of our humanity. What they proposed was not to let our emotions control us. It's not about ignoring them, but about observing them without being overwhelmed. When we lose someone dear to us, it's normal to feel upset, sad, even angry. Stoicism doesn't tell us to act as if nothing happened, but rather to accept this pain without becoming a slave to it. Instead of denying what we feel, it's about acknowledging the suffering, understanding that it's part of the human experience, but not letting it define our entire life. Being Stoic means experiencing the pain, understanding it, and continuing to move forward with calm and wisdom. As I mentioned earlier, Stoicism was mostly practiced by elites like Marcus Aurelius or Seneca, who benefited from material and social privileges. Their practice of Stoicism might make us think that this philosophy is reserved for those who don't have to worry about their basic needs, for those who have the luxury to focus on inner peace and self-mastery. This raises an important question: is Stoicism really for everyone? Or is it reserved for those who don't have to worry about survival every day, for someone living in poverty, or struggling daily just to survive? The idea of seeking inner peace might seem distant, almost out of reach. You might think, I don't have time to meditate or reflect on my serenity when I'm fighting just to find a roof over my head or something to eat. But here's exactly where Stoicism shines, in its ability to speak to everyone, regardless of material conditions. Let's not forget Epictetus, a former slave, who proved that this philosophy goes far beyond material circumstances. He had neither wealth nor power, yet he found in Stoicism a way to free himself internally. He proved that true freedom and peace do not depend on external conditions, but on our ability to control our mind, to decide how we react to suffering and injustice. Stoicism is not reserved for those who have everything. It is, in reality, a method for regaining dignity and resilience even in the worst situations. As we've seen, this philosophy has always carried the idea of living in accordance with nature. For the ancient Stoics, that meant conforming to the rational order of the universe. Today, we can reinterpret this as a call to respect the limits of our planet, living more responsibly toward the environment, choosing sustainable options, reducing consumption. All of this can be seen as a modern form of Stoicism. It's not a constraint, but a conscious choice, a way to realize our place within a global ecosystem. But we shouldn't stop there. Stoicism can also be enriched by engaging in dialogue with other philosophies and contemporary knowledge. For example, Buddhism shares with Stoicism the approach of self-mastery and the acceptance of impermanence. Integrating meditation into our daily life, as Buddhists do, can reinforce our Stoic principles. Similarly, neuroscience shows that some Stoic practices, like cultivating gratitude or reflecting on our mortality, have proven positive effects on mental well-being. Positive psychology, by encouraging practices such as reframing negative thoughts, joins Epictetus' teachings on managing our judgments and emotions. To make Stoicism truly accessible and useful in everyday life, it's not enough to discuss it in theory. It needs to be translated into concrete practice. Starting each day by reflecting on what is within our control and what isn't can prepare us to face the harsh realities of life. Taking a moment each day to cultivate gratitude, even during difficult times, can completely transform our perception of life. And finally, the little extra, which for me is the most important, meditating on mortality. Memento mori. Memento mori is not about living in fear by counting the days we have left. It's about understanding how precious each moment is, and realizing that we have the power to appreciate it fully. Now that we understand what Stoicism represents, we can say that, despite its ancient origins, its principles of self-mastery and resilience offer precious answers to our chaotic modern world. But to fully meet the challenges of the 21st century, Stoicism must evolve by valuing collective action and making its tools accessible to everyone. In this way, Stoicism can become a powerful lever for personal transformation. And remember, even in the face of uncertainty, we always have the power to choose how we react. The happiness of your life depends upon the quality of your thoughts. And I'll end the video with a quote from Epictetus: "It's not what happens to you that matters, but how you react to it."